All right, so first we have our participant guide. So, we will be utilizing this throughout the rest of the training today, and it is only an hour, so it's pretty quick. And so we will get in, get out, and hope that you all have a good rest of your Thursday. So this is our social studies department team. We are incredibly excited to be able to work with teachers all across the city of Dallas. We are led by Shalon Bond, our social studies director. Our elementary coordinator is, pardon me, is Athena Newton. We have Irene Lyons and Shirley Steele are our middle school coordinators, so they would be your touch point people. Cicely Williams is our high school coordinator, and I, Graham Stevens, am the project manager. So if you're interested in doing Model UN, National History Day, taking tours, going on field trips, all of those good things, I would be your contact person here. But I'm incredibly happy to be here with y'all today for our content quarter training for quarter 2. Here are our social studies ILCs, that is the instructional leadership coaches. So if you are in region 1, you would be working with Sabrina Green. If you are in region 2, you would be with James Hutchison. If you are region 4, you would be working with Bilal Khalid. And if you are in region 3 or 5, all 3 of these ILCs share those regions, since they're 1, all over the place, and 2, really stretch from north to south. So these are our core values. So we will be definitely looking at these pieces in here today. So effective instruction. So tier 1 instruction will yield on or above grade level achievement. Equitable access and outcomes. All at-risk students will succeed with equitable access and opportunity. And last but not least, excellence. We are committed to continually pursuing excellence. Here's our philosophy. I want to give you all a quick moment to check this out. Hopefully in our back to school sessions or new teacher academies, you were given a one-pager of this document along with our mission and vision. And this is just a great way to kind of anchor what we do in social studies. All right. Let's keep it going. So here's our vision and our mission. So this is the what and the how of the social studies department. So our vision is that all Dallas ISD students can think critically, engage civically, and connect globally. And our mission is providing intentional support and growth opportunities in social studies. And I see that we have a person coming on in. How you doing, Brittany? I am putting the participant guide in the chat. Please let me know if you are able to access that. We had a little bit of trouble people accessing the chat earlier, so just let me know. All right, awesome, perfect. All right, so while we are going to jump into some big rocks first of looking at spiraling data, as well as looking at data, as well as spiraling to mastery, and then looking at the instructional implications and further resources that we would love to share with y'all. We want to look at some tiered curricular resources. So in your participant guide, you have links to all 3 of these documents. And so the first is our tier 1 resources. And these resources are scientifically researched and evidence-based to provide standards aligned on grade level instruction. Our tier 2, the curriculum framework for tier 2 and tier 3, these are recommended to provide targeted skills support for small group students who are potentially unsuccessful with that tier 1 instruction. And finally, our tier 3 resources support those highly targeted intensive interventions and instruction. These resources are intended for students performing below grade level and the typically 5% of the student population. So you all have access to these. We don't really need to go into them, but I just wanted to make them aware for y'all, and you all have those in your participant guide. And they are also available in your Curriculum Central. All right, next up, So these are some of our other tiered curricular resources, and we may be familiar with these. For our tier 1, we have, sorry, computer went a little crazy there. For our tier 1 resources, we have Studies Weekly for our K through 5 kiddos. We have Holt McDougall Online and McGraw-Hill, which are both of our textbooks. Tier 2, we are really, and Tier 3, we are relying on our Active Classroom, which are amazing resources. If you have not checked out those, please check out Active Classroom. They have amazing maps and atlases and activities that you can provide for your students, along with readings and other activities. So you can either assign those digitally, or you can print those out and hand those to your kids, as a hard copy. So I see that we have some more people jumping in. I'm going to drop the participant guide into the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are y'all? I just want to make sure that we all have access to the participant guide. It is a forced copy. Just want to make sure that you all have access to that before we continue to move on. Yes, Brittany. Yeah, I will be. That is at the our ending slide. So we'll do our attendance and our survey link at the very end. Yep. Or sorry, the survey is all the way at the end as well on the participant guide. So I'll be making sure that I do give you all the attendance link. Yes, ma'am. Yep, no problem. All right, now we're going to head on to our learning objective and our success criteria. My computer wanted to jump ahead a little bit on these. So our learning objective is I am using historical ACP data to influence instructional practices for spiraling content and reviewing materials that will increase student mastery. So that is what we are hoping that you all walk away with today. So how are we going to be able to get there, showing mastery of our learning objective? First, I can apply historical ACP data to influence instructional practices for spiraling content. I can spiral and connect standards introduced in quarter 1 to quarter 2 standards. That's the amazing thing about world cultures, and we'll talk about that in the session today, how we can always continue to spiral. World cultures is maybe the best content to do this. And last, I can implement instructional practices and materials that will increase student mastery. Beginning with quarter 2, strategies for student engagement should be implemented to intentionally support our students, especially our emergent bilinguals and our special education students. So in your participant guide as well, I have linked the Elevation playlist. And if you have not been able to, or if you've never seen this before, it is an amazing resource. If you've kind of been looking for an activity to bring to your classroom, if you're getting kind of tired of using the same activities again and again and again, this is an amazing resource to check out to bring in different strategies and activities into your classroom. Thinking about our elevation strategies, we are going to model one of them right here, which is a QSSSA. And our expectation is that you use and encourage your teams to use the elevation strategies to support the learning of all students with intentionality for our emergent bilinguals and our SPED students. So now let's watch a video that models how we use the QSSSA engagement strategy.
But the relationship is proportional. So QSSSA is a way of providing a structured conversation for your students, and where you question, signal, stem, share, and then assess. The question is just based on what you're teaching that day. What makes this relationship proportional? Whenever you think that you know the answer to this question, I want you to put your hand on your head. I think the signal helps a lot just because that just gives them that extra time to really be thoughtful and not just wait for somebody else to raise their hand and give them the answer. This relationship is proportional because, and then you're going to fill it in. You provide a stem. so that they can respond in a complete sentence and use the academic vocabulary.
This relationship is proportional because it goes to an argument. This relationship is proportional because it has a constant of 28.
QSSA helps with interactions just by providing structure. Those interactions help. If they don't know the answer, their partner may, and so their partner can help them foster some new content and language.
The table is proportional because it's in y equals x form. And if it's labels, we could also use the labels.
Yes. Okay. And then after the sharing process, you just need to assess. Christian, can you fill in this sentence in for me, please?
This relationship is proportional because it goes through the origin and it goes through 0, 0.
I think for English learners, this is really valuable because each step really gets them ready to speak. To help my ELs, I make sure I pair them with someone who can help them gain their language. So I'm not going to put a beginner with a beginner. I just want to make sure that they know what to do, and then they're really practicing those sentence stems. For my English learners, I have lots of anchor charts, and I always try to refer to one specific so they're not searching. My students really like QSSA. They are able to learn from one another, and they build a lot of confidence whenever they're using it because they're using that academic vocabulary. Just having conversation with others, they like that, but they're also learning from those conversations.
So, brief little overview of QSSA. Has anybody in here used a QSSA in their classroom so far this year or previously? And if
not yet.
Oh, perfectly. Okay, no worries at all, because we are going to experience one here in a moment. So again, the QSSA is question, signal, STEM, share, and assess. I always get the 3 S's in the middle a little bit mixed up, but so that is signal, STEM, and share. So right here, our ask is that you strengthen the use of all 4 strategies during Q2, and you will see them on the Focus IPCs as the preferred engagement strategies. So at the bottom of those IPCs, those kind of like recommended strategies. So that's some of the ones that we have here. All right, so with academic discourse, this provides a better learning experience for students and can help students practice their problems solving skills. Students learning from other students when we have that true academic discourse. And this allows students to express and understand significant ideas. If they are telling us that they know something, if they are telling us why people are settling in this area, or they are telling us why a government is created this way, or why a economy is set up this way, you're truly seeing what a student knows. And then you can make a better adjustment on how you're going to be moving forward. So that is our that is our question that we are going to be using in our QSSA. So on your participant guide, there is a space to answer the STEM. So that is, in my classroom, I facilitate discourse by/when. So there is your STEM. You've got the question up at the top. How do you facilitate academic discourse in your classroom?
Normally, I will display a scenario that is closely related to the day's objective. And I'll have the students place themselves in that scenario with a question at the end, like, how would you react, or what would you do? You know, and so that's a very good conversation starter with the group of students that I teach, because they do like talking to each other a lot. And so when they're in that hypothetical scenario, when they're putting themselves in, it's a great conversation starter, which leads into the lesson, of course.
Great. Thank you, Rita. I appreciate that. And that's great. And you hit the nail on the head too. I mean, 6th graders are going to love to talk about themselves. So whenever you can relate your topic to their lives or how they would have handled the situation, I think that's absolutely perfect. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Rita. Anybody else like to share before we move on? How they bring in discourse? Okay, Great. All right. Thank you, Brittany, for typing that in. So in my classroom, I facilitate discourse by doing a think, pair, share, and or think, write, pair, and share. Awesome. Love those. Scholars reflect on the prompt and or idea, like the essential question of the lesson, for about a minute. Then scholars pair up via a partner and partner B, or partner A and partner B, sorry, and share their ideas or responses, and then we share out whole group. I love that, yeah, and that gives them an opportunity to be in a safe space, just talking with one person before they share out with their entire classroom. So, Brittany, I love that idea as well. Great, yeah, think, pair, shares are awesome. They can get their ideas down first, so you have a moment to kind of literally gather your thoughts, and then you're sharing your idea. So great, I love those ideas. Looks like we are already doing that. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive on into some Q1 content. So just as a recap of all the things that you have been teaching for Q1, starting out with the 5 themes of geography, the Mr. Help. I always love that acronym. So movement, regions, human, environment, interaction, location, and place. And so the great thing about this is it's going to continue to spiral throughout the rest of the year. Then the very first topic we hit on the world is US and Canada. So with that, you're hitting all the physical and human geography, as well as government, economics, and culture. And what you just wrapped up on was the first half, or really a little bit more than the first half, of Latin America, getting everything except for economics and culture. And so that is exactly what is going to be coming up in our Q2. So where are we going? Great question. We are going to be covering Latin America, the economics. So I have a cool little graph here of the GDP of various Latin American countries, Colombia all the way through Venezuela. And the other piece hitting is the culture of Latin America. So I have a display here of the Dia de los Muertos. Awesome opportunity here as well, since we are headed into that same exact season, Hispanic Heritage Month. So everything pairs together really, really well here. Then we've covered now pretty much all of North America and South America. And once we are finished with Latin America, hitting that econ and culture, we move across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe, Russia, and the Eurasian republics. And this is then restarting that entire cycle again, like I was talking about. World Cultures is great with this, starting with the physical and human geography, then the government, the economics, and the culture. And that's going to wrap up our first semester with the rest of Europe right there. So that is where we have been, where we are headed. And now I want to look into 2 TEKS from the Fall 22 ACP that students who have been struggling with, dealing with economics and culture. So I wanted to, I pulled these 2 specifically out. One, because you're headed into those same topics with Latin America, but 2, you're going to see it again and again with Europe, Eurasia, and Russia, as well as with Africa and the Middle East, as well as Asia, as well as Oceania, and again and again and again. So let's go ahead and check these out. So the first TEK that I wanted to pull out was 6.3. And so the geography, make sure I'm right here. So the geography of 6.3, and that knowledge statement is: the student understands the factors that influence the locations and characteristics of locations of various contemporary societies on maps and or globes. The student is expected to, 6.3b, now jumping into the SE right here, explain ways in which human migration influences the character of places and regions. So as you can see on the little chart right here, 6.3b, pretty low, and it is low across the board for our on-grade level kiddos as well as our honor kiddos. So the reason I wanted to pull this one out is another awesome opportunity is we can bundle. So we can put 2 of these standards together to make them a little bit more digestible, if you will, for our students. So looking at 6.3a, this is identify and explain the geographic factors responsible for patterns of population in places and regions. So if we're looking at the geographic factors, we always have to keep a map in mind, or at least that's what I always was thinking of, is when we're dealing with this map, how is that going to impact how people move, that human migration? And then how are those people moving going to then impact the place that they live? So when we're moving from one place to another, we're not just bringing our things and our stuff, we're also bringing our ideas, we're bringing our culture, we're bringing all of those aspects. So with this, there's a lot to unpack with these two standards right here. But I wanted to ask y'all this. What content knowledge or skills must students acquire to master the TEKS, whether 6.3b or 6.3a or both of them together? What type of things or what content knowledge or skills must students acquire to master this TEK? And y'all have to be shy. You can either type in the chat, you can get off mute, however you want to respond.
Can you read the TEK out again? I'm driving, so I can't read it.
Sure. Yes. So the 6.3b is explain ways in which human migration influences the character of places and regions.
I think that the students, if they have to understand migration means to move from place to place. I know I've run into, I didn't teach world cultures last year, but the year before, they were having a hard time understanding migrating and moving basically basically mean the same thing. And so this year, coming back to world cultures, I'm spending a lot of time explaining that migration means to move from place to place. And so I think that will help them really breaking that down and taking that time to help them understand that those words are synonymous.
Definitely, yeah. And starting with the vocab is always important. Making sure that we have our that foundation with our students. Yeah, completely agree. All right, well, maybe if we jump into a question dealing with 6.3b, this will help our minds work a little bit on here. And I totally get it. It's the end of the day. I fully understand. So let's check out this question right here. So 6.3b, this is from the example items from the ACP. So let's see how this standard could be assessed. So you all have this question here. I'll let you all get a quick moment to look at it. And in your participant guide, there are 3 questions, and we can just have a discussion about those 3 questions, keeping this question right here in mind. I'll give you all a moment to check this out. Think about the answer. And then on your participant guide, there are those 3 questions, and we can just discuss these. Doesn't have to be anything in depth. Just looking at this question. All right, so this question right here covering 6.3b, what content and skills do your students need to ensure mastery that they get this question correct? Just breaking it down. What are they going to have to know or be able to do or show to get this question correct?
I'll answer. I'm new to teaching world cultures. And so I've really focused on Mr. Help and it's also helping me, of course. And so I think they really need to understand the 5 themes of geology here and know what type of examples fall under each of the themes, because there's a lot of that in this little
Excerpt or whatever.
excerpt. Yes.
Definitely, yeah. So I mean, yeah, you've got movement, you've got region, you have human environment interaction, you have location and place. And I mean, you could kind of imagine wherever location they're going, but yeah, the place definitely, with the cultural traditions and transforming the character of their new country too. Yeah,
Right.
I like that a lot. So when you are going through things like this, do you have your students write out the Mr. Help and kind of break down questions in that way, or just trying to think of other ways to help you?
Well, I have 3 anchor charts in my classroom on 3 different walls. And they also have it in their interactive notebook. So when we're having little scenarios like this, I just keep referring back to it. And so because they have it in their interactive notebook, if we ever come across an unknown example, we will write it into our notebook, just to make sure we have plenty of examples on each theme.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to utilize that and keep it at the first of them, keep it at the top of their mind. Great. All right, so I'm gonna click and show the rationale. So with this rationale, kind of breaking down the question, what could be some potential misconceptions your students may have if they get this question incorrect?
One thing that I've noticed is with my ELLs, they will get immigrant and migrant confused. They think it's the same. And so that's been a challenge, to come up with a way of helping them understand what the difference is.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking, yeah, I remember teaching that, and it was immigrant going in, migrant, and I don't know what way for migrant would be, but yeah, migrant move. There's whoever else was talking about migrant earlier, but that was the easiest way I always related it, but yeah, those, and yeah, that's the English language is tough. I know, but I understand. All right, well, let's go ahead and check out another question that we have, which is 6.6a. So on here, we talked about a little bit of culture as well as human geography on that last one. Now I want to switch it to economics. So 6.6, the knowledge and skill statement, states that the student understands the factors of production in a society's economy, and the student is expected to, and this is 6.6a, describe ways in which the factors of production, natural resources, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs influence the economies of various contemporary societies. So if we look at our chart here, 6.6a is the lowest performing standard on our fall ACP. Didn't do great with our on grade level kiddos or our honor kiddos. So that's why I wanted to draw a little bit of attention to this. So thinking about the standard, what content knowledge or skills do our students have to master this TEK? Sorry. 6.6a.
They actually need to know what the factors of production are, and they need to know what natural resources are, which is what the issue I'm running into, because they'll respond with resources, and I'm like, but what resources? Sometimes it's like shoes, clothes, not those kind of resources. So
okay.
you know the difference between all of those.
For sure, yeah, and especially in the words labor and capital too. What is labor? What is capital? Like trying to figure out those pieces. No, I 100% understand. And then learning the word entrepreneur, that's a tough word to master as well. So I'm right there with you. But yeah, getting down to what these words are, and then that last part, influencing the economies of various contemporary societies. So let's say if a country doesn't have any natural resources, what are they going to do to be able to get those? How would a country without any natural resources gain natural resources?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, so I was saying if a country does not have any natural resources, how would they gain those natural resources? Just thinking about how countries would interact with one another, maybe.
Detroit.
Yeah, trade, definitely. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So then that brings in a whole another aspect of countries interacting with one another, maybe barriers to countries interacting with one another, those types of things. So this is a big standard here, and a question that we have that we can kind of show off right here. So this is how this standard could be assessed. So this is a new TE question, technically enhanced question. And so this would be a click and drag type of a deal. And so give y'all a quick moment to check this one out. And we can answer those same questions that we did for the first one with this one right here. So with this question in particular, I think you all hit it on the nail on the head. You've got to know what the words are. You have to know what natural resources are. You've got to know labor. You have to know what entrepreneur is. You have to know what capital is in order to get this question correct here. And so here is that rationale, basically the key. And so, and again, yeah, and Ms. Crowder, you brought up that point of, natural resources is, it's not something that people can produce, a natural resource. And same thing with labor, that could be, and capital. Those are kind of words that you've got to really dive into to fully understand what they are. So any quick questions about these two right here? These two questions? We're going to jump into. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
This is Holman. I just wanted to make a comment on just the title of it itself. It's called the Factors of Production. I just kind of had to go and kind of rename actually what that is. Yes, it's the Factors of Production, but I had to take the word production. TION is an action. What are you doing? You're making a product. So it's the steps that you take to make a product. So the first thing in order to make a product is you have to have natural resources. Everything that we have comes from the earth. And so that's how I teach that one. So then what do we do? So I give them like an example of a pencil. What is a pencil made of? Made from, they say, trees. Okay, so but how do we get it to turn it into a pencil? And so this actual question right here isn't that hard for my students, because I have to take the title and, kind of break the title down and then give them a simple way of understanding that one.
I love that, Ms. Holman. Yeah, breaking down that word production. So and I didn't even think about that. That is a verb. So you have to produce something, and so the factors of it, all the pieces that go into producing something. That's awesome. I love that you've broken that down for your kiddos. That's great. Yeah, awesome. Great. All right, well, we're going to go to our quick little check here for success criteria. So can we say that, yes, I can apply historical ACP data to influence instructional practices for spiraling content? So looking at data, see how we can implement this into our classroom. See some heads shaking. Great. So now we are going to, and I know we're kind of running on time, so I wanted to move through some things. So one of the big pieces of this quarter content training was that we continue to spiral content in world cultures. So when we are thinking about how we can connect US and Canada, Latin America, Europe, Russia, and the Eurasian republics, I put this little chart right here together. So when we're thinking of the 5 themes of geography, and I know someone talked about this earlier, using HELPS, that acronym throughout the entire course, always keeping that in the back of our mind. And once we get through US and Canada, which is really that first piece of teaching brand new content to the kids, once we get into Latin America and every other region, we have the opportunity to compare and contrast every single time. So when we're looking at the Latin American government, how can we compare the government of Cuba to the government of the United States? How can we compare the economy of Venezuela to the economy of Canada? And we continue to do the same thing throughout Q2 when we're looking at economy and culture. And the same thing with Europe, Russia, and the Eurasian republics. More countries and regions, rather, to compare and contrast with. And I have some opportunities here too to bring back the Pizza Power lesson, which was Unit 2, Lesson 6, to address new forms of government. Once you get into Europe, you're going to be exposed to some different forms of government that we didn't have in US and Canada or Latin America. And the same thing with the economic systems. We're going to have brand new economic systems that we weren't able to hit or didn't hit in US and Canada and Latin America. So just a couple opportunities here to spiral content, and awesome opportunity. Just continue to compare and contrast, always keeping these ideas in our students' head as we continue to move on. And a great piece here. And one thing that's just really specific to world cultures is all world cultures TEKS are designed to be repeated as you introduce a new content, country, or region. None of them are specific like they are in 7th grade or 8th grade, where 8.4D is the Constitution, and then you move on. It's 6.6A. You're going to hit you're going to be hitting the economy every single region in every single spot. So it's they're designed to be repeated and help your students out there. So thinking about that, how can we spiral to mastery? What are some ways that you all continue to spiral or bring in taught information back to your students?
For me, it's the vocabulary part of it. When I teach, like when we do our vocabulary slides, I definitely always have a picture so they connect, and I make sure they actually make a connection, because a lot of times I'll ask them their words, even my ELL, they'll give it to majority of them are Spanish, even though we have other languages, and they'll tell me what it is. I'm saying the word, and they'll tell me what the word is in Spanish. And it sounds exactly like what we're reading. So I'm like, you guys, you understand, it's the same word. It's literally the same word. So I try to give them synonyms to go with their words to help them continue to make the connection. And then I'll go back and say, and actually every day, if we have, depending on what our do now is, I've tried to purposely make the do now something that we've already learned so that we can keep doing it over and over and over and over and over. So it's just in their head. So I just keep trying to just do it. Our do nows make that constant. Or if we are reading something and I'm like, remember, we talked about, what is this called? Like with the word, they have a problem with agriculture. Think farming. What's another word? Think farming. Arable soil. Think farming. What does farming mean? What do you do with farming? So they got it. The word economics. I want you to think money. Think money. So every time I read it, we see economics. What word should we use? Money. When we think talking about agriculture, what word should we use? Farming. So that's what I kind of do to keep that in the back. So it doesn't matter where they go, what they're listening to, radio, they can still make that same connection.
Love that. Yeah. And those are some ideas that I have up here that you were already listing off here. So yeah, do nows, check for understandings, always spiraling in old information, comparing and contrasting, comparison activities with geographies, governments, economies, cultures. And then just the idea that, we have more similarities across the world than differences. So thinking about where and why do people settle? People are going to settle mostly near water, where they feel safe, where they are able to make a living or grow crops, and it's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's not a desert, it's not anything like that. So we have more similarities than we do differences. And then the big one here with governments and economies, when we have that spectrum of more freedoms versus less freedoms, think of that as limited governments versus unlimited governments. So if you are living in a country that has a limited government, you're going to have more freedoms. And I know that gets twisted in kids' heads all the time. And if you're living in an unlimited government, therefore, you're going to have less freedoms. And the same thing goes with the economy. If you're living in a communism or socialism, you're probably not going to have as many choices as if you were living in capitalism or a democracy, those types of things. So just again, some opportunities to continue spiraling for your kiddos. So our success criteria here, I can spiral and connect standards introduced in Q1 to Q2 standards. We feeling pretty good about that? Cool. All right, we're going to be jumping into our last little section right here. I know that y'all are familiar with this, hopefully so. This is our Unpacking the Student Expectations Graphic Organizer. Maybe you've seen this before if you've been in the district for a month, a year, or 5 years. Going from the top, we've got our knowledge and skill statements, then our student expectations, the verb, the noun, breaking it down like a no-show chart, that type of thing. But the one thing that we really want to pay attention to is down here at the very bottom. I'm going to click through all of these. And that is what content is inferred. So what information are our students already coming with? Or what have you already taught them that they can pull from, with US and Canada or Latin America into Europe, Russia, and Eurasia, or moving throughout the rest of the regions for Q2 and Q3 and Q4. So the content that is inferred oftentimes comes from previous lessons. So just an opportunity here to really hone in on that. And you all do have a copy of that in your participant guide. And I know we are running a little late on time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know that, it's in the evening and all of that. But one thing I wanted to go ahead was this would be a broken down or completed chart for that TEK that we went into earlier, that's 6.6a. So I just give you all a moment to kind of check on this one here. And again, we're going to pull right down to that bottom, what content is inferred. And just as you said, Ms. Crowder, students can define and explain those 4 pieces of the factors of production. And Ms. Holman, you tied, and that was a great idea. If we can break down the word factors of production, then that's really going to help our students think, okay, well, now I need to have natural resources. I need to have people to build this product. I need to have the money to do it. And I got to have the idea to do it as an entrepreneur. So, our breakdown chart, or however you want to call this, the Unpacking of Student Expectations Graphic Organizer. Y'all have a copy of this in your participant guide, so more than welcome to please use that in your PLCs and while you're going through lessons, and just a great way to kind of plot your ideas down. So for Q2, Unit 3, the upcoming weeks, so next week and the week after that, we are focusing on the economies of Latin America. So we do have these standards right here, 6.6a at the top of that list. And so if you look on that left-hand side, the asterisk, those are the anchored standards, and the bold, those are tested on the ACP. So we do have some biggies that are going to be taught throughout this Latin American economic topic. So what Shirley Steele, who is another middle school coordinator, and I were working on is making sure that you all have the resources available to you in order to fully teach all of these standards. So in our Curriculum Central, this is that landing page for the for that very first week of Q2. So we have our days broken down. We also have some resources listed here. And our instructional resources. So other resources that you can pull and add into those specific days that you are going to be building out for. So and one thing I want to call attention to is the additional resources. So these first 4 resources right there, those are going to definitely be helping you bridge that gap and continue to spiral as you jump into the Latin American economy. So you can spiral in US and Canada, and you can pull from information that they were learning in US and Canada into Latin America. So I do urge y'all to check out those resources as you begin to plan for the next couple weeks right here. So we can implement instructional practices and materials that will increase student mastery. So we looked at those in our Curriculum Central resources. And last but not least, if you are interested in participating in the Model UN conference, I've been sending out emails and things like that. You have the opportunity to register right here.